Hello, dear ladies. Welcome to International Women's Day. Could you turn to a friend next to you, and I believe all of us friends tonight, and say Happy International Women's Day? Yay. So let's give each other a clap. So we are very happy to see you here. And a couple things, if you really need to use the bathroom, please feel free to get up and walk and use the bathroom on the back, okay? So the bathrooms are on my back. Be free to get up and use the bathroom. And throughout the night, please be free to get up and get a cup of coffee. It's decaf coffee, so don't be afraid to get a cup of coffee. It's decaf. And have a snack and just make yourself home. Can we just sit back and just relax? Tonight, it's a night of inspiration. Tonight, it's a night of encouragement, and our hope and prayer that you will walk away encouraged, uplifted, because we rise by lifting each other, right? And also, our hope that you will walk away with a new friend or girlfriend, right? So, look around, look how many beautiful women present tonight. All generations are present tonight, all walks of life, different nationalities, professions, marriage status, and we're all women, right? And tonight we celebrate who we are. And if you are from Ukraine, would you... My mom understood what I was saying. If you're from Ukraine, raise your hand. Let's welcome a wonderful Ukrainian woman here tonight. If you are a student, please raise your hand. We want to give you a hand as well. We have students. We have 4 or 5 students. If you are a mom, please raise your hand. We want to welcome you. If you are a profession, perhaps you work at the hospital or a police officer or some very essential job, I would say, please raise your hand. We want to honor you. If you are a daughter, raise your hand. Everybody? Yes, yes, yes. And if you're a sister, if you have a sister, yes. Yes. So there's so many titles we wear, right? We are a sister, a friend, a mother, and it's a beautiful thing. And I just want to share a couple things with you that I feel like it's burning in my heart and something that brings me encouragement. Have you ever heard of kintsugi technique? It's Japanese art. Raise your hand if you ever heard of that art. So it's a type of art from Japan, and if Melody could translate to a wonderful Ukrainians. And the idea of this Japanese art is that broken pieces, pottery pieces, put together with gold. And the idea is that you embrace the broken pieces, you embrace flaws, imperfections, and those things leading us into more beautiful, more stronger piece of art. And I would like to be vulnerable with you tonight. Sometimes I feel a little bit broken. Can you relate to me? Sometimes I feel like I'm a complete mess or inadequate or sometimes crazy and out of places. Can you relate to me? And this Japanese art reminds me that I'm a candidate to be put together, more beautiful, more stronger than yesterday. And I hope that tonight all of us will feel stronger and more beautiful, because everything what happens in our lives, it has a purpose. Even pain has a deep purpose. Do you believe that? I choose to believe that. And for many centuries, woman was marginalized and put down and unnoticed, especially in Muslim countries. And I choose to believe that in a story that I believe is true. I don't know if you've heard of women that had a problem with bleeding. There was in that story, she was so hopeless, but she met someone who looked into her eyes and built her back together, more beautiful. And I believe that all of us have a story, and your story is not finished yet. And there is something that sometimes we don't see and we don't understand, but we have to choose to be grateful, choose to have faith that all things at the end will understand and will work together into a beautiful masterpiece, which each of you are. And can you turn to your friend and say, you're a beautiful masterpiece? Even if you're a little bit broken. So, and we rise, each of us rise by lifting each other up. So please, make sure that tonight you will lift someone up with a word of encouragement, with a compliment, and just simply say, you can do that, sister, you can do that, friend, I believe in you. So that's the night. We rise by lifting each other. So first, I would like to introduce our first speaker. And she traveled here from Connecticut, and her name is, where are you? There you are, she blended in. And I have a hard time pronouncing her last name. Forgive me, please, let me read it. It's a unique name because she's from, her heritage goes back to, where are you from again? Armenian. And please help me to welcome my friend Ruth Hartunian-Alumbaugh, right? Alumbaugh. Please welcome. She is a wonderful friend, music therapist, and she will give her introduction and her story with us, and then we will have Miss Carol, and then we will wrap up with Miss Robin, and at the end, we will have time of fellowship and connecting with one another and have some snack and refreshment. Please walk away with a new friend, okay? That's our goal for tonight. Thank you very much for being here with us tonight.
Can I get a picture of all of us? Yay! We gotta do this.
Let's welcome our friend Ruth.
Number called Ravings and Cravings. So if you go to Facebook, you can see all about my food adventures. It's something I really enjoy. I've written and I've taught cooking classes, but I spend a lot of time with internationals. So I have a very soft space in my heart for internationals, for people who come here and who teach me so much. I feel I can learn a lot from my international neighbor. So we're going to play a couple of musical games. I can tell you guys are ready. You guys are ready. You are ready for this first game. This is a musical game. So here's the game. Think about the day you had. And if you had to think of a song title to depict your day, whether it's an already existing song or whether you just make it up, tell me what your song title would be today. Beast. One person said Beast, another one said Love Me Tender, Love Me Sweet. Any other song titles out there? Jealous of the Angels? Oh, I don't even know that song. That's a song? Or did you make that up? All right. No one's going to say it's a hard day's night and I've been working like a dog? No. You were going to say something?
Sound mind for a spirit of fear.
Sound mind for a spirit of fear. Is that an original?
No, that's a song.
That is.
Sound mind.
I just don't get out much, I guess.
You're simply the best.
Oh, there we go. Actually, how about This Girl Is on Fire? How about that one? That's a good one. Nobody's on fire though, right? We're not there.
That's the way I like it.
Yeah, that's the way I like it. Okay. One more before we go. Oh, that's the way I like it? Okay. Oh, okay. Living, how do you say it? Living something. La Vida Loca. All right, there we go. Well, and then I have one other little icebreaker, and it has to do with jingles. It has to do with jingles, because music, you know, did you ever have a song that just, it gets in your head and you just can't get it out? It's just there like all the time, right? So I'm going to play a couple of jingles, and I want to see if you can guess what the jingle's from or where, okay?
Yeah, there we go. How about this? Oscar Mayer.
Wait, I thought we were doing jingles.
Well, they are jingles. They're the little theme song. Yeah. They're theme songs from things. Oh, were you thinking Jingle Bells? No. Okay. All right. You guys are good. Let's try a couple more. You guys are good.
Disney, that's right. When you wish upon a star. How about this? Jaws, that's right. You guys got it. And how about this one? This one. Yeah, there we go. That's it. That should be my.
Baby Shark. You guys are great. So, in this little warm up, were any of you in any pain? You were? Do you not like that Baby Shark one?
Shark one.
Is that painful to just?
The song's in here now. No, I just kind of tuned it out.
It's just annoying after a while, the Baby Shark one, because it keeps going over and over again. I'm going to explain a little bit about why I chose to do what I just did, but we're going to go ahead and go on, and I'm going to define for you what music therapy is. So please, I know your eyes could glaze over at this point. I'm going to give you the clinical definition of it. I am in the midst of smart people. I am sure you're going to get it, but I'm also going to give you my own definition. So I'm going to go for the clinical one first. And yeah, that is me intimidating a small child with my guitar. So according to my professional organization, which is the American Music Therapy Association, music therapy is the clinical and evidence-based use of music interventions to accomplish individualized goals within a therapeutic relationship by a credentialed professional who has completed an approved music therapy program. In plain language, what that really means is I use music to help people get better. So like a doctor uses medicine, I look at whatever the issue is, and I think of ways to use music. So whether it's already existing music, or whether it's something I write, or whether it's something that addresses whatever your issue is, because music is so, everyone loves music. Nobody likes surgery. I wouldn't like surgery. If I had to choose, I'd choose music. So I've worked with a number of populations of people, and personally, I don't love labels, but they do help us organize things a bit. So just to give you an idea of where I have used music therapy, I have used music therapy in labor delivery rooms when babies were being born. I've used music in a psychiatric hospital, both in chronic and acute psychiatric, working with forensic patients. So the last population of people I worked with before I quit my day job were people who were not guilty by reason of insanity for committing heinous crimes, which is very interesting, as well as 5456Ds, and these are people who are incompetent to stand trial. I've also used music in places where people have neurological impairments, in hospitals with older adults who have memory issues, group homes, churches, substance abuse places, group homes where people are dying. I mean, music can go anywhere. And so what I seek to do is to make music accessible to whoever it is I'm working with, no matter what their ability or disability or whatever their challenge is. So that's a little bit of it as far as what music therapy is in a nutshell. So next, drum roll. Isn't that cool? Wait. I had to work really hard to get that in there, so I figured I'd get that in there a little bit. I want to give you a little bit of music history, and this is the part where maybe, you're going to check out on me, but I want to tell you about where this whole thing, these ideas came from. So the picture on the left is an ancient picture, and it's a picture of what would have been like 1,000 years ago or more, Saul and David. Saul was a king, and he was sometimes very troubled in his spirit. And so he would call on a young boy named David to come play his harp for him. So to me, that is kind of like where music therapy began. In the right-hand picture, I don't know if you can see it very well, but it's a picture of people in a VA hospital, in a veteran hospital. And so in the 50s, in around World War I and World War II, people were coming back from wartime. They were traumatized. They had so many issues to deal with. And so they thought, well, let's bring in some musicians and maybe people will benefit from that. Well, people did benefit from that. And so in a way, music therapy was really born more in the 1950s. A professional organization was formed at the time, and that is the organization that I'm a part of. So that's kind of it in a nutshell. My training was with the grandchild of the man on your left. His name is Ethair Gaston. He was at the University of Kansas, and the woman on your right is someone I attribute a lot of my success to, because she is a woman who is an excellent music therapist, and so she was my professor. So I got to learn from one of the founders of music therapy, like I'm one of his grandchildren is what I would say. I feel very fortunate. So that's Alicia Clare. I had to give her a little nod there. So the question I'm going to answer here is how and why does music therapy work? Well, I already said music, everybody loves music. I think I've met 2 people in my life who say they don't like it at all. So I stay away from those people. And music brings people together. It has a way of bringing people together, even if they don't like each other. If they like the song, there might be a little bit of fellowship and friendship there. It's not intrusive, so I already referred to this before. No cutting, no prep. You know, how many of you done a colonoscopy? No fun, no. You don't have to do that for music therapy services. It's an enjoyable tool. It is proven effective with various people groups, and it is a tool that can be flexible and accessible. I want to explain one very important principle to you. It's called the isomoodic principle. The isomoodic principle is a technique by which music is matched with the mood of a client or whoever you're working with. I mean, the name has changed. It used to be patient, then it was client, then, I don't know, what do you want to call it? Whoever you're working with, right? And then it's gradually altered to affect the desired mood state. So this technique can also be used to affect physiological responses such as heart rate and blood pressure. And there's research that shows these things. It is a foundational principle that I use whenever I am sharing music with anyone, as an individual or in a crowd. It requires that I assess who I'm dealing with, and then it requires that I do my homework and learn about the styles of music that people like. Think about what you listen to. Think about why you listen to it. Think about when you listen to it. There are certain songs you're going to listen to at certain times. If you're vacuuming, you're pumping up the volume and listening to what? What do you listen to? Something with high energy. If you are wanting to chill out and you want to relax, you're listening to something that's not high. Say that again? Jazz. So some people like to listen to jazz when they chill out. So we're all different. So the isomoodic principle, coupled with a therapeutic relationship where there is a foundation of trust, which is very important, are 2 big pieces of the music therapy puzzle. And the component of musical likes and dislikes put together with all those things, and we're ready to go with a music therapy session. We're going to take a look at this little clip from the movie called Inside Out. Think about the isomoodic principle. When it's done, we're going to figure out how that worked here. So they're not doing music, but you're going to hear it in the dialogue how it works, okay? So here we go.
Oh, the stuffed animal Hall of Fame! My rocket! Wait, Rally and I were still using that rocket. It still has some song power left. Who is your friend who likes to play? No, you can't take my rocket to the top. Riley and I are going to the moon. Riley can't be done with me.
Hey, it's gonna be okay. We can fix this. We just need to get back to headquarters. Which way to the train station?
I had a whole trip planned for us.
Hey, who's ticklish, huh? Here comes the tickle monster. Hey, Bing Bong, look at this. Oh, here's a fun game. You point to the train station and we all go there. Won't that be fun? Come on, let's go to the train station.
I'm sorry they took your rocket. They took something that you loved. It's gone. Forever.
Sadness. Don't make him feel worse.
Sorry.
It's all I had left of Riley.
I bet you and Riley had great adventures.
Oh, they were wonderful. Once we flew back in time. We had breakfast twice that day.
Sadness.
It sounds amazing. I bet Riley liked it.
Oh, she did. We were best friends.
Yeah, it's sad.
I'm okay now. Come on. The train station is this way.
How did you do that?
I don't know. He was sad, so I listened to what...
Hey! There's the train!
We made it! We're finally gonna get home! Oh no, these facts and opinions look so similar.
Ah, don't worry about it. Happens all the time.
Isomoodic principle. So why did what sadness did work, and why did what joy, that's the other character who was trying to get him to cheer up and laugh, why did that not work? Anybody, go ahead.
Acknowledged his feelings.
So sadness acknowledged, I think his name is Bing Bong, the elephant. That's his name. I didn't pick it. So sadness acknowledged Bing Bong's feelings, exactly. So she met him where he was and listened to him, and then took him to a place where he felt like he could go on from there. That is a practical application of the isomoodic principle. So if I come into a session, like I've gone into a session in a psych hospital when we could still smoke in there. I don't smoke, but do you remember the days? Oh my Lord. And then there was like 25, 30 people in a group, and it was a day where everybody was really up, and trying to think of how you meet them at that place. But music is able to do those kinds of things. So that's the isomoodic principle. Think about, is music therapy for you? Do you deal with any of these issues? Let me throw a few out. They might be a little unique. We'll see. Pain? Anxiety? Physical rehab? Are you going through some kind of rehab where you're trying to learn how to move certain parts that don't move anymore? Depression? Fatigue? Stress? Music therapy can help improve communication, gives a voice to people who are struggling, promotes wellness, and helps in the expression of feelings. The aspect of music therapy that is really unique is the fact that it has a nonverbal component. And a lot of times when we deal with things that are human, people say things, but they are totally disconnected from what's really happening on the inside. And so the nonverbal aspect of music brings that to the forefront. So if I'm in a group, I can assess how people are using their instruments, how they're engaging or whatever, and I can figure out like what's really happening, because at the end of the day, we all need somebody that we can trust, that can reach in and find us in that place. Because then we can go someplace else if we need to, if we can, or we can sit with someone who needs someone to sit there. So it's all that. I wanted to close my time out with a song that I would like you all to sing with me because I think it will be fun. It's people like you and I who can join our voices to sing about so many grand and glorious things. So I chose this song. And I'm wondering, Andrew, will you be able to advance the words with this? I don't need them. I guess I won't. You got it? There we go. Pardon me? Okay. We have the power. All right. Do I need to get close to it? Okay, that's good. That's great. I don't know if you would like to stand or just stay seated. Just stay seated. Let me just give us an intro and please sing with me. Here we go. I see trees of green, red roses too. I watch them bloom for me and for you, and I think myself, what a wonderful world. I see skies of blue and clouds of white, the bright blessed days, dark sacred nights, and I think to myself, what a wonderful world. The colors of the rainbow, so pretty in the sky, are also on the faces of people going by. I see friends shaking hands, saying, how do you do? They're really saying, I love you. I hear babies cry, I watch them grow. They'll learn much more than I'll ever know, and I think to myself, what a wonderful world. I think to myself, what a wonderful world.
Can everybody hear me? Okay. My name is Carol Charpentier, and I'm from this area. I live in Marston's Mills. This is Patty Vianne. Patty is here because I have a profound hearing loss. So I can hear you like if I'm talking to you, but if somebody talked to me way back there, I'd be lost. Patty, I'm from Christ Chapel. That's my church. And Patty runs the, tell them.
Well, that's not why we're here, but
But I'm going to
here's a
tell
plug.
It's a plug.
The Christ Chapel Thrift Shop in Centerville at the intersection of Old Stage Road. Old Stage Road. Yes, it is. It is. We have to kiss it. Okay.
That's what it is.
There you go. So, okay, I won't really, but I'll get close enough. Christ Chapel Thrift Shop. It's on Old Stage Road and Oak Street in Centerville. It's a lovely little shop. So come visit if you're ever in the area. So anyway,
Thank you.
it's really Carol's night here.
Ruth, I want to thank you so much. Where are you? Where'd you go? I want to thank you so much. Of course, you had to play that song, which makes me cry. So I'm like, I got to speak. That is one of my favorite songs, my absolute favorite songs. So I want to thank you. Now can you hear me? Okay. Well, after Ruth Thank you, Robert. After Ruth got up, and it was really inspiring. I loved it. I believe music changes the world. It changes societies. It changes cultures because it touches not only your brain and changes it, but it touches your heart and your soul. So anyways, now I have to talk about depression. Sorry about that, but I'll tell you why I talk about depression. I'll tell you a little bit about my experience. First, I'll tell you I'm a mom, I'm a wife, I'm a grandmother. I have 5 kids and 11 grandkids and many great-grandchildren. So I have seen a lot of kids and a lot of changes. Like the 2-year-old, they'll know more than we'll ever know. Yeah, 2 years old, they're working on a computer. I'm still trying to figure it out, but they work on a computer. So anyway, I have experience, yes, in mental health for the last 35 years. I'm not going to tell you chronologically because I'm not old, but I'll tell you in categories what I've done and why I'm here. So I worked mostly as a therapist. I started here on the Cape as a family and a child therapist, and then I went on and I worked as a crisis clinician in a psychiatric team for Plymouth County for the 10 towns. During that time, that's what I did. I went out and I assessed people day and night, and they were at risk for hurting themselves or somebody else. Then after that, I ran 3 clinics. I was director of 3 clinics, 1 in Plymouth, 2 on the Cape. And then because I left the crisis team because I had a family and I got to sleep 4 hours a night because I kept getting called out. That's why I went to a clinic. But I got called back as the director of the crisis team. What I noticed when I would go out and I see people, and they were suicidal, I'd say, well, what stops you? What stops you? What makes you want to live? And they'd say, well, because I believe in God. I'm a Christian. I'd never kill myself. Or I'd never hurt anybody. But then 2 weeks later, I'd be called out because they had overdosed or they had tried to hurt themselves. And I'd say, what happened? God doesn't love me. He just doesn't love me. Because when you're depressed, and you're with your Christian friends, or you're part of a faith organization, and they're praying for you, and you're going to church, and they're telling you you're going to be okay, and trust and believe, and trust and believe. But when you have a clinical depression, you don't see things that way. You're looking through dark glasses. You don't see it. So then it turns on them, and then they say, God doesn't love me. To this day, 30 years later, I still see stigma in churches, and it's sad. There's a stigma, especially in women. I mean, usually my talks are 2 hours long, so I'm going to cut this down. I'm winging it. I had an agenda, but I'm just going to wing it. If you have questions later, I will stay and I'll answer them for you. So I'm just touching on some things in depression. But we're all women, and except over there, Andrew. We're all women, and we're all wonderfully made, and we are all beautiful. And I really believe that 100%. But as women, we have many, many, many roles. We are daughters, we are sisters, we are wives, we are mothers, we are grandmothers, we are business owners, we are writers, we are employees. We serve so many roles, and it can be very stressful, very stressful. And there's many different reasons for people being depressed. There's many different causes. Some of them are social. Some of them, you have to think about what society is like now and what's going on. You just turn on the news. I like Good Morning America, but what's good about it? You turn it on in the morning, it's like, good morning. And then what do you hear? You hear about the violence, you hear about wars, you hear about earthquakes, everything, and people being displaced. So it's very stressful. And then we look at the hormones. We're special. We have all these hormones. And I'm just going to touch on that and what's normal and what isn't. So everybody remember puberty? Nobody? Does anybody remember puberty out there? Okay. And if you don't remember it and you have daughters, like I had 3 of them, they reminded me of what it's like. So it is a time when a young woman can suffer from depression. It might not be a clinical depression, but it's rough for them. There's more identity issues because of social media and everything else that's going on in the world. So it's difficult for them. Could be conflict with parents. I know I had a 12-year-old Bonnie, and she was 12. She's all grown up. But she was a very complacent child, like, what do you think, Mom? What do you think? And she went to bed one night, and she woke up, and I said, good morning, and she said, no, it isn't. And it was like, what happened to that kid overnight? So you can see your little girls, they start to grow up, and so they can have problem with their moods. Everybody know what PMS is? Okay. PMS is hard because you can suffer from anxiety, fatigue. I think you all know all the the moods you can go through. I don't touch on the physical, I touch on the moods. And it can be a difficult time. And I'll talk a little bit about self-care on that. But there is a time when PMS can turn into a clinical depression. That's what you have to watch for. It's not normal. If you have such moods that it interferes with your whole life, it interferes with your relationships, it interferes with your work, and it lasts longer than it should, you really should talk to your doctor about it. It's called dysphoric. It's called dysphoric PMS. And so it is a clinical diagnosis, so you can look at that. And then getting pregnant, well, that just sends the hormones flying, doesn't it? So pregnancy can be difficult. Your hormones are all over the place. For all the nurses here know that. And it just can be you're fatigued, you're tired, your hormones are running crazy. So it can be a difficult time. You can be depressed. Everybody knows what the baby blues are. That's normal. Baby blues are normal. I had my 3 kids. I adopted 2, but I had 3 of them. And I remember a couple days just feeling down. I mean, now your hormones are trying to do something else. And you're up with that baby, a new baby, you're supposed to feel good, and that can last for days. But there is something called postpartum depression, and that isn't normal. And that's when you really, really, really are struggling. There's the guilt, and there's a fear of not being able to take care of that baby. It's just, if it lasts longer than like a couple weeks, you should talk to your doctor. There is called psychosis, postpartum psychosis. I can't hit on that, but it's when a woman loses touch with reality. If you look at the research, it's interesting. It can happen a couple days after birth, or it can happen months, and it can last up to a year. That is a medical emergency. So that's why you would be talking to a doctor about that. I have a lot of pieces of paper up here, information, and it's going to talk about some of those things. So after this is over, we can do that. But I do want to pass out one, because we're going to talk about the symptoms of depression. Yeah, just go that way. There's not enough, so if you could just take them. We see, I don't have time to do the statistics, but they say 1 in 10 people suffer from a major depression during the lifetime. But statistics are crazy, because if you can start looking at different research, and it's going to tell you different things. But women are twice as likely to suffer from depression than men. I'd say it's because we talk about it more. How do they come up with this research if they don't know if men have come forward with it? But if you look at the research, it shows that women are twice as likely. They say 1 in 10 of all people, again, would suffer from depression. But I don't know what it's like since the pandemic, since the war, since the pandemic. I haven't seen the newest research out, but I'm sure it's going to be different when it comes out. It was a very stressful time. I know I'm seeing more and more and more people for anxiety and depression. I am retired, but I still have a private practice, but I only do it a couple days, and most of it's in depression and anxiety. So we're going to talk about 2 different depressions now. One of them is persistent depression. Another word for it is dysthymia. Does everybody have that paper? Or they're sharing? I don't know how many there were. This thing is...
Oh, it's too close. Sorry, that was my fault.
No, that's okay. some of the depression is genetic. You probably know that. A lot of it is genetic. The interesting thing about that in genetics is women seem to get the gene more than men. Again, how do they know that? How is that research done? They say woman can get it, but you remember, as much as you can get a gene of depression, you can get a gene of resilience. And the other reason I talk about depression is 80% of all depressions can be cured with therapy and sometimes with antidepressants. And the other part, I see people with depression, and they learn, even if it's a persistent one over years, they learn to control the symptoms, and it doesn't control them. And I think that's what's the most important. If persistent depression, it's a person I see, and I'm talking to them, and I'll say, well, what were you like when you were a kid? What were you like when you were a teenager? Well, I was different. I just didn't have as much fun as other kids. I didn't want to do what the other kids did. I just wanted to stay, in my room. I just didn't want it. I don't know. Like everybody went to Disney and they were having so much fun, and I just wasn't having that much fun. I felt different. But I'm just melancholy. I'm just kind of a grouchy person. And you talk to them and you find out that throughout their life, they had these days. Well, some days I feel good. So they don't have a deep, deep depression. All our moods are like that. Every day, our moods are like that. But with dysthymia or persistent, your mood's a little bit more down, not too up. Somebody explained it to me. Well, I never feel great, but I feel better than I did yesterday. I never feel really, really happy. I just feel less sad. I'm less depressed. So that's a persistent depression. That can be treated. That can be treated. A lot of people that have a persistent depression, they will have bouts of major depression. So some of the symptoms, and the other thing about women is they interact more with other people. So that's one of the things. A woman that's depressed will tell somebody else, or they'll talk about it. So that connection is very, very, very important. And the other thing about women with persistent, when I see people, a lot of women, they've had a parent that they were either abused or a parent that was withholding, or they had some trauma. They might have lost their parent when they were 10, a loss of a sibling. There's big trauma with big T and there's small trauma with small t. And we all have small trauma with the small t. But there are women that have grown up and they've been physically abused, sexually abused. They are more prone. That's one of, that's the causes. Living in poverty. Everybody coming over to this country that's been displaced. I could go on in our society today. Your environment, you live in a dangerous neighborhood. What about financial issues? People that live in poverty, there's a higher rate. But women tend to be resilient too. And I see that when I talk to women, and it's encouraging. So when I was with depression, I'm going to go through some of the symptoms. Everybody has it, so I'm going to go through some of it. It's not sadness. When you're sad, you know why you're sad. You could be living in a beautiful house, have a great marriage, and still come down with a depression. It's a disease that touches your mind, body, and your soul. I call it the full body illness. So when you're like that, you feel empty all days. You feel empty, fatigue, constant fatigue, irritable, trouble concentrating. I know I had one man, when he finally got over it, he said, I finally can watch TV, I can read a book. So I've seen people when they have a major depression, they can't even read a book. You read 2 sentences or 3 sentences and you can't get through it. So concentration is really difficult. Aches and pains. Aches and pains is a big one. I had when I was working at the clinic, I had a call. I was director in an adult female wanted to talk to me about their mother, and their mother had lost 10 pounds. This woman was she was a professional woman, very intelligent woman. She was in her 60s, and they did every test known to her, all very invasive tests, as you know, as a nurse. And she wasn't getting any better. She wasn't eating or anything. So I said, okay, well, I'll get her a therapist. And I got her the therapist. 2 weeks later, I get a call back from the same woman. She's not any better. I said, well, you seeing Elaine? Yeah, but she went on vacation. I said, well, bring her in. I'll talk to her. Make a long story short, the woman was suffering from such a major depression. She couldn't eat. She couldn't sleep. She was losing weight. All she did was burping, because she was so sick all the time. And if somebody was able to know that in the beginning, maybe she wouldn't have had to go through all these tests, you know. And it was because she had a major depression. She was afraid, because she said, I was afraid. I thought I was going crazy. And people with major depression will say they feel like they're going crazy, like something else is going to happen. And she said, I was afraid I was going to go crazy, and then I was going to be locked up. No, we wouldn't lock you up. She goes, well, my mother, after having my brother, was in the hospital for 2 years, because years ago, you know, they would put them in and you had a hard time getting out. So I see people, backaches, headaches, stomach aches, you name it, aches and pains. I think my thing says it hurts. Depression hurts, and it does. So that is so persistent depression, it still has the same symptoms, but but you just feel it like this. A major depression, when you go into a major depression, it's down here. And that's when you would seek help, even with the persistent depression. And nowadays, there's a lot of therapy that you can do, short-term therapy. I know people don't like to take medicine. A lot of people don't like to take it. I'm not one for medicine myself, but I've seen it work. I've seen it work. I have young women that finally, I'd say, you know, you could sit in therapy with me for a year, and I can't help you because it's a medical condition. Remember, the brain is an organ. The brain is an organ, and it can get sick. So that's one of the things. I'm going to talk a little bit about self-care. Again, if you have questions, I will be here, and I hope I can answer them, because I am just hitting on things this much. I'm going to talk about self-care. Again, we talked about if you feel like you're going through this, please contact your doctor and a therapist, because you don't have to stay that way. You don't have to stay that way. Self-care. One of the things is, if you can, leave social media alone. Give yourself a break. Give your brain a break. Again, like I said, what do you do when you turn on the TV in the morning? You don't hear good news, so if you're depressed, it's just not helpful. So leaving social media alone for a while. Take care of yourself. Practice self-compassion. If you belong to a church or a group, when you're depressed, you won't want to go. That's part of depression. It's isolation. You want to isolate. So somebody invites you out to lunch, and you say, no, I can't go. I have to do this or that. And for a few minutes, you're going to feel relieved. You're going to feel relieved because you don't have to do it. But it deepens the depression. If you can engage in an activity and connect with people, the most important thing is connecting. Coming to this coffee shop is a connection. It's actually a connection. So if you can connect with somebody, it won't feel good in the beginning, but you'll see that your mood is lightened later in the day. So connect with people, connect with groups. Alcohol, I call liquid depression. People like to have a glass of wine or something, take the edge off, but we call it liquid depression. So that's one of the things. Exercise. I can't talk enough about exercise. I can't. 30-minute walk a day, all research shows it changes the chemicals in your brain. It's just so important. It changes your body. It changes the brain, the chemicals. So exercise. Meditation. I actually have a breath prayer, it's called. I have a meditation here. If you can meditate Doesn't mean you have to sit there in the lotus position and join some Indian temple or anything. You don't have to do that. Not that I'm against anybody that does it, but meditate is taking a break. It's learning to breathe. When people are upset or they're anxious, Americans especially, they breathe from up here. When you learn to breathe, you breathe from your stomach, and it changes the physiology of your body and your mind. It's taking a break, just taking a break. I'm trying to think of some of the other things. Does anybody have anything else they can think of that's good when you're depressed? Thank you. I don't know who said that, but yes. People are depressed, even when we're not. But when people are depressed, they seem to crave sugar and carbohydrates. And it gives you a little lift. I think our body is like, I need something to get this chemicals in my brain working. And you seem to crave sugar. So on carbohydrates, we find that if you can leave that alone and stay hydrated, drink a lot of water, stay hydrated, exercise, diet is so very important. Fruits, vegetables, but it's usually the starches and the sugar that does not help depression. I mean, there's a lot of research in that. It's kind of a do or die thing. It's like, yeah, you can't have any of this. They say dark chocolate is good, so I always talk about dark chocolate. Who doesn't like chocolate? I don't care what a dietist says, chocolate is good. You try, what else? That was great.
I think journaling, and
Journaling. Yes, some people love journaling. Some people that get too depressed, what happens is it can make them worse. But journaling, yes, with people, I do encourage people to do journaling. That's a great one, to be able to put it down on paper.
Get a dog.
Yeah, that's true.
That's true. Unconditional love and
Get a dog. Okay, a pet. Yes, absolutely, 100%. Being able to, a pet can be your best friend. The only thing is, if you're so depressed you can't take care of it, that's another one. But you're absolutely right. And the other thing about having a dog, maybe not a cat, is you have to take it out and you have to walk. If I could think of my three top things, my first one would be connection with other human beings. The second one would be exercise and diet. The third one would probably be get a pet, walk, exercise.
Music. Vitamins. Prayer.
Prayer, yes. When I talk up here, I have that up here. If you're in a group, if you're in a faith-based community, it's 100% absolutely you should do that. I mean, there are prayer groups, there are people in churches and temples, wherever you go, that will pray with you. It is very, very important to do that. What happens when I see people get depressed, they stay away from church because they say, I don't have the joy anymore. God doesn't love me. I don't have the joy anymore. And they stay away. So and then I see them after 3 months, they take an antidepressant, they're in therapy, and they say, guess what, I'm back in church now. I have the joy back. So it's very, very important.
Sunlight. Vitamin D. Getting outside.
Sunlight in the morning is very important. It hasn't been sunny lately, though. But yes, it's interesting. I was just talking just today to somebody depressed, and I said, you have to get out in the morning, and you have to be in the sun. It's very, very important. Again, that goes with the exercise that I think I'm talking about, to get out. I'll say something, you might think it's silly, but in Japan, they have something called forest bathing. That doesn't mean... Okay, good. So, they know about it. Good. Because it sounds kind of silly. You leave your clothes on. You don't go naked into the trees. But, so in Japan, they do forest bathing, and they actually have parks. And a doctor in Japan will actually give you that prescription to go, and you have to walk. It's a park. You have to walk through the woods. And then they have people that actually take the vitals, for blood pressure and everything. And it's, you know, it's the trees, it's everything. They say that you get that energy, you get it from that. Again, you're walking, you're in nature, it's peaceful, it's quiet. And I'm going to say one more thing. For some reason, when people get depressed, they start watching the TV programs. I can't remember the name of them all, but I don't even want to watch them, and I'm okay. Violent movies, dark movies. You have to laugh, even if you don't want to laugh, even if you don't want to. And some of you here, if you're living in a situation that is painful to you and hurtful to you, and it's hurting you, remember to reach out, reach out to people. There are other women that would help, and they'll help you. So I want you to remember that. Remember, we're wonderfully made. We are. So I am going to turn it over. And again, any questions, comments, and all these papers up here, you can come up later and get it. And so this is a very short, just had to run through it. But in May, it's Mental Health Awareness Day. So at Christ Chapel, I probably will be doing another thing just on depression, but a much longer one. It's like over 2 hours. And I'd like to do something on anxiety. So there's some cards over here from Christ Chapel, and my cards. You can always call me if you have a question to ask. But again, I'll be around. Robin.
That was awesome. Lots of really good stuff. I love the music, and definitely hearing from an expert. Depression was definitely something that I battled for years. I still get depressed. I think we can all say that we all do. That's life. But it was really cool to hear Carol talk and realize that over the years, I really have learned those coping skills to cope with things as they come up. And even the things like walking in the woods, praying, that's something I do every morning. That's my routine. I get out of the house, I walk, I go somewhere where I'm not distracted, the beach or the woods or something, and I talk to God. And that's how I start my day. And I start my day thanking Him, even when I don't feel like thanking Him. And for some reason, that just seems to kind of turn the day into a positive angle. So I am Robin Farnsworth. Ina asked me to talk. And I said, well, you know who I am. I mean, she's had me talk before. She knows my story. And she knows that my life really, it's a story is what it is. And I like to say it's really God's story. It's the story that He gave me. He gave everyone in this room a story. But the particular story that He's given me is one that He wants me to share with people because I guess, in some ways I'm sort of this icon for trauma with a big T, as was being said. And people will look at me. I get 2 questions all the time in my life. How did you survive? How did you forgive? And I'm going to begin by, and I'm going to, we're all trying to fit a lot in here with the 3 of us. So I'm going to give you kind of the shortened version of things, but I'm going to start back when I was an 8-year-old child, very nice upbringing, beautiful neighborhood, mom, dad, 3 brothers and a sister. And then one day in 1964, I was 8, and I had a brother, Timmy, who was 9. We both went off to summer camp. Boys went this way, girls went that way. And I came home, but he did not. He cardiac arrested, a perfectly healthy little boy, and died on the way to the hospital. That event completely imploded my family. And as an 8-year-old girl, and I have to say, kids really do understand death. They just process it in a whole different way, but they do. And I'm trying to process what this all means. And I remember my mom had said, Timmy is with God now. And I remember sitting on my front porch with my little brother and being a good big sister and pointing up to the sky and saying, Timmy's with God now, he's up there. And my little brother, who's only 4, he's sitting there looking at the sky, and he says what every 4-year-old would say. He said, where? And I remember sitting there and thinking my big question that just reverberated in my heart was, where is God? And fast forward, as a 12-year-old, 4 years later, my dad had gone from being a successful businessman in Manhattan to a janitor in a bowling alley. He turned to the bottle. My mom slipped into mental illness. She was eventually diagnosed with acute schizophrenia. She just checked out. And so my surviving brothers, I had a baby sister, we're all just kind of like the ship blew up and we're all hanging on to a piece of wood and we're trying to swim. My coping was alcohol. My coping was alcohol, drugs. I'm dovetailing perfectly into the hippies, the rebellious era, everything I can get my hands on to make myself feel good. And then fast forward again up to being 29 years old. I was living in Wellfleet, 2 little boys, single mom. I'm standing in a beach parking lot. It's December, it's freezing cold, but I have such a huge hangover, I can't feel anything. And I'm scared, because I know I am becoming what my dad was. And it was as if God just sort of opened up a window or sort of pulled back a curtain and let me know that if I did not stop, I was going to be dead within 6 months. I could feel my liver was swelling. I was having blackouts. I was educated enough to know that I was just spiraling to the end. And this was my prayer, and it was super lame. I just said, well, then you got to help me. And all I can describe it as really a miracle of grace. It was as if he just picked me up out of the mud and shook me off. And from that day to this day today, I did not have a drop of alcohol or any other drug into my body. It was really a miracle. And I'm still grateful for that. But the problem was I was still a mess. I was a sober mess is what I was. And it was really painful looking in the mirror every day. I was angry. I had used that alcohol all those years, 17 years, to just cram all that pain, the rejection, the anger, everything that I felt as a little girl was still there. It was just tamped way down. And it took about 2 years for me to, at a friend who was very brave, because I was such a tough, hard person. She kept asking me to go to church. Come to church, come to church. Jesus loves you. And I was like, you are super annoying. And then finally, for again, a reason I really to this day don't know, I was driving to night school, and instead of turning right off of exit 6 there to go to the community college, I turned left and I pulled into this little storefront church. And at the end of the service, the guy said, "Who came here tonight looking for Jesus?" And my hand went up and I was like, didn't really want to do that. Anyway, I ended up just praying this simple prayer and asking God to forgive me and asking Jesus to come into my heart. And it was like, I knew right away that something had changed. In fact, it kind of freaked me out. So I ran out of the church, jumped in this old beat-up Ford van that I had, and I'm driving home, and I was really glad it took like 40 minutes to get from Hyannis to Wellfleet. And I'm like, what is this? What just happened? Everything even looked a little different. And then it was like, I heard this. I mean, it wasn't this audible voice in the van, but inside of me, I heard this voice speak and say, "You need to forgive your father." Now, I knew it wasn't me, because if you'd asked me, I would have said we had made amends. He had been gone for about 6 years at that point. He died of cancer at a pretty young age, but he had been sober for, I think, almost 7 years before he died. So we had we had made amends. So I kind of argued it a little bit. Yeah, I'm all set. I'm good with that. You need to forgive your father. Just kept like that press. And so finally I said, okay, I forgive my dad. And it was like almost as soon as I said that, that van was just flooded with this peace and this joy that I had never in my life experienced. And I just knew whatever this is, I don't want to lose this. Because as a teenager, I searched, I looked into tarot cards and all these different religions and bizarre things and witchcraft and, reading your palm and, I'm like, it says I'm going to have how many? 5? I don't, It's like, and I just knew that, okay, it was all fine and good, but nothing ever changed with it. But this was like, what I was really feeling was God's love. So God showed me at that point how important forgiveness was. And really, as a nurse for over 30 years, how many of you have ever run into someone who's like extremely bitter? So, right, it takes over. So there's a scripture in the Bible that talks about the bitter root. And there's an actual plant called a bitter root. And the thing that's crazy about this plant is that it can actually look dead, but it has the ability to regenerate and send out more roots. And I thought that is such a perfect spiritual description of what happens in our hearts when we let bitterness take root in there. And that's exactly what had happened to me. And it was as if God just reached in and just yanked that sucker out, because he probably knew my bitter root was so huge and deep that there was like nothing was going to happen inside my heart until that thing was dealt with. So unforgiveness is like a huge issue. If you ever want a good book to read, I forget the doctor's name now. I think it's Levy, but it's called Gray Matter. And he's a neurosurgeon. And he ends up really discovering how so many like maladies and stuff are related to unforgiveness. So it's kind of cool when you're, in healthcare and you can sort of see how things affect people spiritually. But anyway, fast forward again to 2002. I'm working in the emergency room as a nurse. And we got a call that there's 2 people stabbing victims coming in. And one was what they call a code blue, and the other was very seriously hurt, a priority 1. And they wheeled the code into my room. I couldn't see from where I stood. I was against the wall doing documentation. And after about 15 minutes, they called it. He had a stab wound to the heart, and he had clearly bled to death. And the patient liaison went to take his wallet out of his jeans, and when he opened up the wallet, I saw my son's name. And I could feel something kind of unhitching in me, but my first response was anger, and I just said, what's this guy doing with my son's wallet? But I knew I had to walk over to the stretcher. And so, longest walk in my life, when I got to the stretcher, I said, that's my son. It was my son, Spencer. The police officer told me before I left that night that he was a hero and that he had died saving the life of someone else who was being attacked. That was the young man who survived, and that they would make arrests, which they did. The Yarmouth police were wonderful. We actually had a homicide event here in December, and very grateful for so many people who were so helpful. But that's my trauma with the big T. And, that was 21 years ago. And that very morning when I went home, I'm looking out the window, and I can't even begin to process, But again, that still small voice spoke to me and said, will you forgive? Now, I didn't know names, I didn't know circumstances, I didn't know anything, but I knew the importance of what that meant. I had lived it, and I had been following Jesus for 14 years. that to me was the only rock I was standing on at that time. Even though I didn't understand anything that was happening in my life, I was anchored into something. And so I just said, yes, I will. I made that decision, and I look back now, and it was like, that yes was like a hinge pin that turned the trajectory of my life, my children, my whole family, friends, a whole community in a lot of ways, not to mention the young men who killed my son and other people who were involved. And you know, nobody would have blamed me at all if I'd said no, right? I mean, it would have certainly been understandable, but my heart was to follow after Jesus, and Jesus says we have to forgive. It's actually in red. If you open up a Bible, the words in red are the Jesus words. It's like he said it. And you know what? I'm so glad he did, because sometimes we hold on to things because we feel like, number one, it's our right. And we also want to feel like we have a sense of control. Like, I want this to play out that way. I want them to get this. I want them. And God is saying, just let me have it. Just give it to me. And it's like handing, your dad your dirty blankie. It's like you want it, but it's gross, And so when I handed that to him, it was really his love for me. It was his rescue for me and so many other people who were involved. And I wrote a book. It's over there if you want one. They're for sale. I detail so many things that God was able to do through something that you would say, there's no way anything good can ever come out of this. And I certainly would have agreed with you for quite a while at the time. But when we give control of our lives over to him and let God be who he says he is, which is, he is a healer. He's a redeemer. He's even called the great physician. And I'm not saying don't go to doctors or don't, go to therapists or whatever. I'm not saying that, but I'm just saying go to him first. He's your creator. He's the one who made you, who formed you beautifully, wonderfully, who placed all these gifts and talents and abilities in you. He loves you with a love that goes so beyond anything you could ever experience. I mean, before I met Jesus, I was like boy crazy, because I thought, I'm not validated unless there's a guy telling me, because I had a dad who rejected me, and so that was my way of, getting my self-worth. But deep down inside, I did not feel like I was worth anything. But when you know him and you know your love, his love for you, and you realize no matter how you feel about yourself, he is always going to view you as his precious daughter, no matter what. And he will never, ever leave you. And those dark times I walked through, and I had some wonderful family, wonderful friends, church, but there are places in life you go that are so painful and so dark, it's lonely. No one else can fit in that place with you, but what I found is that Jesus can. He was there. He was waiting for me. The Bible says he's been everywhere we can think of, every pain you've ever felt, everything you've ever gone through, he has experienced that. He has been there, and he's waiting for you with compassion and mercy and love and saying, come on. Let's go. I mean, I used to wake up in the morning and I'd just be like, ugh, another day. It actually took me about 4 years before I woke up in the morning and it was easy to get out of bed, I'll be honest with you. My world was very painful. But he was right there saying, come on, let's go. I'll carry the heavy end. Let's go. And he's just so faithful. And it's not just for me. It's for every single person. I go down to the jail every week and talk to the ladies down there. And it's so cool because I just say, I don't care what you've done or why you're here. In fact, it really is a miracle I never spent time in jail myself. But I was such a bad teenager. Oh my God. It was all my teenage years. It was just, yeah. I left home when I was 15. I was totally just blitzed. But I just say, you know, we're all on the same playing ground. God doesn't look at any of us like, well, I don't know about her. She's, woo, you know. We're all on the same level playing ground. And that's why I love, you know, International Women's Day. Women from all over the planet. I just traveled to see my son in Malaysia over Christmas, and Malaysia itself has so many different nationalities there, and then we flew to Vietnam and traveled, and it's like everywhere you go, people are people, and women are women. You know, we all have, and we're so different than men. We really are, and we all have needs, and we all desire to be loved, right? Is there anyone in here who does not desire to be loved? Because I could be wrong. No? Okay. We do. We do. And it's a love that is constant, that will never leave you or forsake you. And that's my story in the short version. And like I said, I'll be happy to talk to anyone afterwards, and then also if you want to pick up a book over there. Thank you.
Hello, dear friends. So who remembers what was the goal from the beginning when we started? Make a friend. So if you didn't make a friend tonight, you better do. And then another goal of tonight is to be inspired, encouraged. Raise your hand if you feel inspired and encouraged tonight and uplifted. Awesome. So the mission is accomplished. Yes, 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 yes. So, my friends, I want to say thank you for coming tonight and being part of this wonderful community. We rise by lifting each other up, right? And please make sure that you walk away with a friend, with saying something encouraging to another woman. And all of us going through some stuff, right? So sometimes we have no idea what another woman or person in front of you going through. And I want to acknowledge in a special way tonight a woman that came from Ukraine. Could you please get up, woman from Ukraine? Ukraine. Yeah. Can we give them a hand again? God knows what they've been through, and there's Moldova, and we have Brazil represented here. So wonderful. Just like we sang in the beginning, it's a wonderful world. If you were touched tonight by and benefited by tonight, would you be so kind if you feel led to give a contribution or donation? We have a box over there, so that will be amazing, because all of this, as you know, everything is not for free. So we are very blessed by your contributions. And also, stay tuned. We will have other things happening. Like, for example, on Saturday, there will be St. Patrick's Parade, and there will be this wonderful Ukrainians who will be marching for Ukraine with Ukraine. And so you can be part of it. You can show support and be part of it. And again, thank you so much. We have some goodies on the back, decaf coffee. Our speakers are up front. Miss Carol, Miss Robin, Miss Ruth, thank you so very much. Let's give them a hand again. And Miss Melody, go ahead.
Please take the flowers home.
Oh,
The
yes.
flowers are for you, but could you leave the vases? Okay. But anyway, take the flowers out and take them home and put them in water when you get home. So.
Yes, each woman get a flower. And several. And then a goodie, make a friend, stay connected with us, and please make sure to connect with the speakers, get their materials, and happy International Women's Day. And let's have a selfie together. 1 second. And now video. 1, 2, 3, but we'll say Happy International Women's Day. Let's practice. 1, 2, 3.
Happy International Women's Day.
Good job. Now let's do it for real. 1, 2, 3. Happy
Happy International Women's Day.
Wonderful. Please make yourself home. Oh, another announcement. We have wonderful Wendy. Please stand up. She wrote a book, Coffee Connections, and on
It's all about,
Friday.
who said, talked about connecting with coffee, so it's about that, and like mental health, that's really, you know.
So please come support our local authors on Friday at 10 a.m. It will be here. Yeah, and any other announcement? Robin, are you speaking anywhere soon? We will let you know if she's speaking anywhere soon.
Cape Cod Females Over 50, there's a group.
Yes.
Cape Cod Female Friends Over 50.
Woo!
It's just like great ways to connect with other women. You can randomly go to an event and just feel really comfortable. Like I met Donna at a coffee here, actually.
That's right, right here in
That's
the
right.
corner.
Yeah, for the first time.
What's the name of the Facebook group?
It's called Cape Cod Female Friends Over 50.
Cape Cod Female Friends Over 50. Wonderful. That's wonderful. Please stay here, mingle, find a friend, have a coffee, introduce yourself. Thank you for coming.
Mine's